Imagine, for a moment, two distinct worlds. On one side, we have the frozen forests of Eastern Europe, the historical home of the Slavic people. On the other, the humid, spiritual heartland of the Indian subcontinent, the home of the Vedic civilization. Geographically, thousands of miles lie between them. Historically, we are often taught to view them as completely separate spheres of influence. But what if I told you that beneath the surface, these two cultures are not strangers, but long-lost siblings? What if the prayers whispered in ancient Russia were addressed to the same forces as the mantras chanted in ancient India? Today, we are going on a journey through linguistics, mythology, and ritual. We are going to explore the undeniable parallels between the ancient Slavic pagan traditions and the Vedic culture of India. We aren't looking at modern conversion, but rather at a shared cultural DNA, a common Indo-European ancestry that time and distance could not fully erase. From the words they spoke to the gods they worshipped, let us uncover the hidden bridge between the Vedas and the Slavs. To understand a culture, you must first listen to its tongue. Linguists have known for a long time that Sanskrit, the liturgical language of Hinduism, and Russian, a major Slavic language, share a profound connection. They are not just similar. In some instances, they are nearly identical. Let's look at the most primal elements of human existence. Take fire. In Russian, the word is Ogun. In Sanskrit, the word for fire, and the deity of fire, is Agni. Ogun. Agni. The sound is unmistakable. Now, look at water. In Russian, it is Voda. In Sanskrit, it is Uraka. Even the English word water shares this root, but the Slavic preservation is remarkably close to the Sanskrit. Consider the air or the wind. The Russian word is Vuzdu. The Sanskrit equivalent is Vayu, the lord of the winds. But it goes deeper than elements. It touches on philosophy. The very word knowledge connects these distinct worlds. In Sanskrit, the holy scriptures are called the Vedas, coming from the root word vid, meaning to know. In Slavic languages, the root word for knowing is Ved. Even today, a Russian might say, Ya Vedayu, meaning I know. The Vedas are literally the knowledge, a definition that holds true in both Moscow and Mumbai. Perhaps the most significant linguistic link is the word for the divine itself. In Russian, the word for God is Bog. In the Vedic tradition, Bhaga is a term for a deity, often associated with wealth, prosperity, and the sun. Even the name of the Slavic people carries a hidden weight. The word Slava translates to glory. The creator of this theory suggests a link to the Sanskrit word Shrava, which also means glory or fame. This is not a coincidence. This is a fingerprint of a shared ancestor. If the languages are sisters, then the gods are twins separated at birth. When we analyze the ancient Slavic pantheon, which was largely suppressed during the Christianization of Europe, we find deities that look, act, and sound like the deities of the Hindu Vedas. Let's start with Svetovid. Svetovid was a major Slavic deity, historically worshipped on the island of Rügen in modern-day Germany. He was the god of war, abundance, and divination. But look at his iconography. Svetovid is almost always depicted with four heads, looking north, south, east, and west. Now, look at Lord Brahma in Hinduism. The creator god is famously depicted with four faces, reciting the four Vedas to the four corners of the universe. Both deities wear white robes in their traditional depictions. The geometric symbolism of the four-faced god is a specific, complex idea, one unlikely to be invented twice by pure accident. Next, we have the supreme Slavic god, Perun. Perun is a thunder god. He wields an axe, controls the storms, and rules the sky. Etymologically, his name is linked to Varuna, the Vedic god of the cosmic order and the sky. However, in his attributes, the thunderbolt and the warrior spirit, he mirrors Indra, the king of the Devas. Just as Indra fights the serpent Vritra, Perun fights the serpent Wales. It is the same cosmic battle, fought under different names. We must also look to the divine feminine. The Slavs worshipped Mokosh, the Great Mother. She is the goddess of the earth, fertility, and a protector of women. This is a direct parallel to Bhudevi, the Hindu goddess of the earth. Mokosh represents the moist, fertile earth that gives life, a concept deeply rooted in the Vedic reverence for Prithvi or Bhudevi. And what of the sun? In Slavic mythology, we have Dajbog. This translates to the giving god. Recall the Sanskrit word da means to give, and Bhaga means God. Dajbog is literally the Slavic translation of the Vedic Bhaga. Furthermore, the Slavs honored Zorya, the goddesses of the dawn and dusk. This links linguistically and functionally to Surya, the major Hindu sun god. Finally, consider the concept of the Trinity. The Slavs worshipped Triglav, a three-headed deity representing the three realms, heaven, earth, and the underworld. This mirrors the Hindu Trimurti, the three forms of the divine, Brahma the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Shiva the destroyer. Or, it can be compared to Lord Dattatreya, the three-faced avatar. The layout of the heavens was the same. Only the geography of the worshippers had changed. It wasn't just about who they worshipped, but how they worshipped. Today, in parts of Eastern Europe, there is a revival of pre-Christian traditions. The most famous of these is Kupala Night, celebrated during the summer solstice. If a Hindu priest were to watch Kupala Night, he would feel incredibly at home. The festival revolves around two sacred elements, fire and water. Participants light massive bonfires. They jump over the flames to purify themselves of illness and bad luck. This is the Slavic equivalent of the Vedic Agnihotra or Yagna, rituals where fire is the medium of purification and communication with the divine. Women weave wreaths of flowers and float them down the river with lit candles, praying for the future. This is strikingly similar to the Ganga Aarti in India, where devotees float diyas, lamps, and flowers down the sacred river Ganges. In both cultures, nature is not dead matter. It is alive. Rivers are goddesses, and fire is a messenger. While Western Europe largely moved toward a dogmatic, church-based structure, the ancient Slavic heart remained beaten in rhythm with the cycles of nature, just as Vedic culture does to this day. So, what does all of this mean? The creator of this theory makes a crucial distinction. We are not saying that Russians are secretly Hindus, or that Indians are actually Slavs. The argument is that both groups stem from a common, ancient root, the Proto-Indo-European civilization. However, there is a divergence in their destinies. The video argues that Europe underwent a forceful imposition of new religions, specifically Christianity, which overlaid and often erased these native traditions. The Vedas of Europe were lost or turned into folklore. In contrast, India preserved this ancient heritage. The Vedic tradition remained unbroken. Importantly, this perspective challenges the controversial Aryan invasion theory. The narrator argues against the idea that this culture was brought to India by invaders from Europe. Instead, he suggests that India is the reservoir where this ancient wisdom was best preserved, or perhaps where it originated and spread outwards. When a person from Russia reads the Vedas today, they often feel a strange sense of déjà vu. The words for God, fire, and glory echo in their own language. The faces of the gods look like the statues their ancestors once carved. It serves as a reminder that despite our modern borders and political differences, humanity's spiritual history is far more interconnected than we realize. The fires of the Ganges and the bonfires of the Slavic forests are burning with the same ancient flame. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this exploration of ancient history, please like and subscribe for more deep dives into our shared past. Jai Shri Ram.